This is the Worksman WTX Wide Track Trike. It's a wide track tricycle, wonderfully simple yet extremely effective as a vehicle. But unlike other cycles, the pedals are attached directly to the front wheel. This gives complete control as the pedals turn at all times. When picked up or delivered for home assembly, the bike arrives with very few parts that have to be assembled. Normal hand tools are all that is required. There are some special parts. The axle nuts are lined with plastic so that after they're assembled, they're not able to come loose. There's a keyway cut on the steering tube. The fork key washer is keyed to align with the keyway. There's a pair of caged ball bearings. One goes at the bottom of the steering tube with the balls facing up. The other will go at the top with the balls facing down. The first thing to assemble is the axle. Remove the protective covers. Slide the axle through the bushings pressed into the back of the frame so that the axle sticks out on both sides the same distance. Place one flat washer on each end of the axle. You're now ready to assemble the wheels, but it's important to remember to have the valve stems face out. With the frame lying flat in front of you, take each wheel, valve stem facing out, and slide it gently onto the axle. As you can see, one person can perform this part of the assembly. With the wheels in place, the next step is to assemble the nuts on the ends of the axles. This is the first point where we've used a tool. The adjustable wrench will help get the nut started, but then it becomes a two-person operation. Because the axle is threaded on both ends, you have to hold one side nut and tighten the other. When this is done, both nuts will tighten together on the axle holding the wheels. After you've tightened the nuts on the axles on both sides, raise the frame off of the ground and make sure that the wheels on both sides will spin freely. Now it's time to assemble the front fork. Notice the ball bearings installed and facing up. Slide the fork into place against the ball bearings. Insert the other ball bearing set on the top with the bearings facing down. Now install the top adjusting cone on top of the bearing. Hand tighten until it is firm and then back off approximately a quarter of a turn. Then raise the frame off the ground and make sure that the steering assembly does not bind in any way. Now it's time to install the fork key washer on top of the adjusting cone with the tip of the washer in the slot on the fork tube. Now it's time to install the fork lock nut. Make sure it's tight, but it does not bind the steering assembly. Now we're ready to install the handlebar stem, and there is a minimum insertion line. This is done to protect the rider, so make sure that the stem is inserted at least to this point. It's always interesting to notice how things work. The stem is actually held in place because as the nut is tightened, the wedge at the bottom draws up, pressing against the steering tube. Slide the stem into place at least as deep as the minimum insertion point. Hold the stem in place and use a wrench to tighten the nut until the steering tube is assembled. With the stem in place, go back and check the head lock nut again, making sure that it is secure and tight. Now it's time to thread the handlebar through the handlebar stem. This may appear that it's more complicated than it actually is, but if you take your time and follow the illustration, it's a very easy process. Take your time and tighten the handlebar in the handlebar stem. It's important that the handlebar is tight. Now it's time to install the pedals, and it's important to notice that one of the pedals is marked with an R. This goes on the right side of the cycle and has a right-handed thread. The pedal that goes on the left side of the cycle has a left-handed thread and tightens by turning counterclockwise. So here we are assembling the right side pedal, and you can see that we are tightening by turning clockwise. And here we are tightening the left side pedal, and you can see we are turning counterclockwise. You insert the seat on the seat post and tighten the seat on the post by closing the clamp. Now tighten the seat on the top tube, and notice that there are a number of mounting holes. The seat can be repositioned. Installing the hand grips is the final step. Use a spray lubricant, something that will dry, spray the handlebar, and slide the grips into place. The WTX is an excellent trike for corporate events where they can be raced at low speeds, building fun-filled competition, and they're also ideal for therapeutic use. Schools and hospitals find these to be ideal for motion training, physical therapy, where coordination, balance, and muscle memory are required.